So, is there anything you want to talk about? Well,
I'll introduce myself. I'm Peter Flack, and I live here alone. I just got a roommate though. I'm 22 years old, and I first received schizophrenia in 1993. But I wouldn't consider, I considered it an unfair diagnosis.
And what led you to being diagnosed as being schizophrenic in the first place?
Yeah.
Like what caused you to be?
Well, it was through a Ouija board. But I call it Ouija because everybody should call it Ouija anyway. But what first happened was I entered a Ouija board inside. I self-induced it. And it came upon my body. And I became a conductor for spirits and things like that.
What was it like the first time it happened?
Well, it was strange. I started to see things like hallucinations, things like that.
Like how did it start? What was the situation?
Well, I did it with a person. I did it with a person, first of all, and then what proceeded after that was I took a piece of paper and a pen and wrote down yes and no. And I don't advise anybody to do this because it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to do. What you do is you take up a piece of paper and you write down yes and no, and the pen could, by using the Ouija board so much, I had the skill to the pen moved by itself and everything because I had used it so much. I gotten so involved, almost obsessed with the information behind it. I was mostly intrigued by the paranormal and everything, and by the UFO phenomenon, basically.
And what sort of questions were you asking?
Where did they come from? What was the purpose of their abductions, of everything they did? And what eventually happened was I invited them to experiment on me. And what I know is that...
That seems like kind of a risky thing to do.
It is. It's a very risky thing to do, and I was up to the challenge. Along with the challenge of going into a Ouija board alone, there was another challenge. There were challenges after challenges to go through. And I'll explain something later of what I had to do. But it was like I invited them to do an experiment on me. And what I found happened was I was working at a Pepsi company, Pepsi bottling factory. And all I saw were blurs, like forms in the light, like bends in the light, and things moving around me. And no one else saw it because it was like normal. It was like a normal everyday life, except something was going on with me. And they stuck tubes up my nose. It felt like tubes were going up my nose and down my mouth.
This was while you were working at the Pepsi?
Yeah, and...
Like while you were actually in the plant?
Yes. And they kept indicating to me that I should just keep going on with my work. That I should keep working and ignore them, and probably set up some challenges for them so that they can work harder. That's basically what they told me to do. So they could experiment. Even more difficult experiments came about.
Do you have any idea what these experiments were trying to accomplish?
From reading books, I know that it has to do with the human body and the state of the human body. Checking to see if the body is healthy, if there's if they're mentally intact and everything, but it's mostly physical. It has not much to do with mental things. It's mostly a physical thing. What the effects of the environment are on the body. That's what I know.
And so the Ouija board, what is the Ouija board? I mean, to you exactly, how does it work?
It's an oracle. That's what I know. And to whoever speaks on a Ouija board, it's a prison for those who are punished. It's a punishment for spirits. That's what I know.
And the connection between the spirits and the UFOs is.
Well, I use the Ouija board, which is something spiritual. It's something has to do with spirits and the dead and things like that. But I used it to find out information about UFOs, and I must have contacted them somehow. And nowadays it still goes on. I still get experimented on.
Like, what's the most extreme thing that?
Well, the dreams I have. I have dreams of other people being abducted. That's what scares me the most. And nothing really scares me anymore. After I did the Ouija board, I thought I was immortal. I thought I was like nothing could hurt me because I was the most powerful person in the whole world. Now let me say that I was a very delusional person at the time. In the summer, from the spring of '93 to October of '93, I was very delusional. I'm over those delusions now. Right now I just study. What I did originally was I would isolate myself in a room for a couple of weeks on end and just study. Just study the surroundings around me, try and find out who the dead were, where their place is now.
That takes some pretty severe discipline.
It's a lot of self-discipline. It's belief in yourself. It changed my life. I used to be an artist before this, and my whole art outlook changed. I couldn't draw. I just kept concentrating on things, on relativity and science and scientific things.
Do you feel that overall the change has been positive or negative, or is it just?
Half positive, half negative. There's a lot of negative forces out there, but I can't pay attention to them because of what I know from being in therapy is that if you pay attention to negative things, then negative things will pay attention to you, and then bad things will happen to you. So I keep my mind in a positive state of mind, So, but back then I everything was like bliss, It was weird,
And what led you from that to getting into therapy and being diagnosed as schizophrenic?
The good therapy I've been through started last year.
And how did that start to happen, and what?
It took a long process. I was hospitalized a couple of times.
Because of?
Because of decompensating. I was isolating myself in a room, and my mom sent me to a hospital a couple of times. And a couple of times were suicide attempts.
Do you feel that the suicide attempts were because of the negative forces, or is it more because of your own internal?
It became myself. It became the fact that I didn't think I would have a life ahead. I was in low in self-confidence and low self-esteem, and other times it would be like I'm dead. I have a delusion that I'm dead, that I have half died and half living and things like that.
Like, once you start taking down the barriers and opening yourself up to that kind of stuff, it's pretty easy to lose the distinction between internal and external, and because it's all kind of.
Yeah, I lived half a life, like for a while. It was like half living and half in my own world. You see, I got into the Ouija board and my eyes blinked. It was like all my voluntary systems became involuntary. When you blink, it's like you blink to, you don't know you're blinking, but it happens. But my mind connected with my blinking, and the syllables of words that people were telling me came through in my eyelids, and that's how I spoke to people. It was like a disguise. That's how it happened. And whenever you see me, I'll be sitting here, and there'll be 1 million people in the room, and I could just go like this. And that would be the answer to a long, frustrating question that I've been wanting to ask the spirits. It would be yes or no. And I also use my legs. Like my left leg is yes, my right leg is no. And that's about it as well as I can put it. That's how I communicate. But now I've gotten it down.
This is communications with the spirits?
Yes. What I believe are the spirits. I really don't know. It might be just my mind, but I have a belief that it is the spirits.
Okay, this is going great. Hold on a second. I just want to try hooking this up to your TV and make sure it is okay, actually recording the sound.
Sure thing. Okay.
Where were we? Oh, you were talking about the body code.
Yeah, the experiences I've had. I've had some really bad delusions. Like I used to think that I could resurrect the dead. Like the dead people came into my body and got out and were alive in a parallel world. I used to think that they spoke to me and they said, well, we're going to enter your body and we're going to leave and we're going to go on a spaceship and go to another world where it's just like Earth. And it had both UFO, spiritual, it was like it was like connected and everything, It was weird. It was like, I had strange delusions.
And to some degree, you still seem to believe that some of this is still real. And some.
I thought some of the things that I went through were real. They really happened to me, but I didn't think it was. See, I believed it. I believed in what I was doing. I call it a delusion now because mostly it had to do with just my beliefs now, how clear my mind is now, and what I went through at that time was very different,
Did you get any information from the dead where even now it still seems to be something that's relevant or useful?
I had immense amounts of information. Like, I had the belief that the dead are, what I believe now is that the dead are a collective. That they're all one. They're one person. And that could be God. When you die, you become with a collective. In a collective mind, in a collective body. And you become one person. And all of the thoughts are in one track mind, just one track. And it's all peace. There's no money, there's no war, there's no lies. It's all peace. That's what I think that's what my conclusion is now.
At the time that this was all happening, did you write down the messages that you got or record it in any way?
Some things I wrote down in diagrams. That only I could understand. That I could remember and understand myself.
Do you still have any of them?
Yeah.
You want to keep them that?
Sure. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I could show you the one where I had a star. I was doing some things like this right here. I usually calculated numbers. Okay.
Let's see if we can get it over on the camera.
Okay. Right here, I was figuring out.
So just bring it over a little bit more. So that's Alright. Come around to the side.
Yeah. Okay, this is a house, and I was trying to find out where someone's dead body was, and where their spirit eventually left them, and they're right here. And then 10 means something. I don't know exactly what it means. I got some of this, but it's been dead for 11 days. Some of this I don't understand. I was very delusional. I wrote down a bunch of numbers, 5 years in state, 14, 7 degrees, 10A00, and some things I wrote down just so I could remember at the time, and it was mostly delusional. What I have here, is a diagram of a formation of names. Names that I thought were people that were living. That this is one big delusion that I had, where I thought there were people coming to get me, coming to meet me. They were, I can't tell you the names because some of them are real people, but some of them aren't real people. But I thought they were connected, and it went into this formation that I thought was a Golden Dawn formation. Golden Dawn has to do with candidates and Hierophants and Auroras and a few other things like in the Golden Dawn spiritual book.
What is that? I'm not familiar with it.
It's a religion. It's an Egyptian religion, and once you have that power, you can do just about anything you want to, and that's basically what I thought. There isn't much that I can show you. Most of it's very dangerous stuff.
Dangerous in what way?
If you understood it, you could probably be in quite an amount of danger.
In what sense? It's in drawing.
If you knew what I was talking about, you would probably go insane or something. to put it that way.
Or if it was on video and I showed it on TV nationally.
Well,
the whole nation.
You see, some of these things are delusions. Things that could hurt. They definitely hurt me. They made me think that I was really waiting for somebody to come. And I had a belief that it was a plan for the Antichrist to meet me. That the Antichrist was there in Massachusetts. That he was here.
did you know who it was?
I familiarized him with the person. And at times I thought I was the Antichrist. Which is another delusion. But I still have a little bit of faith in that delusion. I have some sort of faith because I think someday I will lead to this Antichrist and I will confront him and something will happen. I had this belief that I had a belief one time that I could cure AIDS.
That you could.
That I could cure all of AIDS, the virus. I had a belief that I was the Antichrist and that the Antichrist would be a good one. The third Antichrist, I mean. The one to come to this earth.
And you were saying that you didn't quite agree with the diagnosis of schizophrenia. And schizophrenia, it's slapped on a lot of cases where obviously it doesn't apply, and it's just like a name that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a very rare case. I'm a very rare case of what they told me. You know, I was very rare. That things like this didn't happen to people. I recently wrote some letters to people, to some investigators, some UFO investigators. I wrote a letter to sightings, pleading for help to accurately describe what exactly went on with me. Because real things happened to me in my mind, and I don't think it was. At the time I thought it was the truth. And for some reason, I still think it might be the truth. I say delusion because that's how people would see it. But I still think there's a little bit of truth to what happened.
You think that it could be true in maybe a metaphorical sense more than, but not necessarily in a literally, as it was?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I worded that pretty badly. Do you think that, like, the truth in what you had during this time could be sort of a metaphor for something else rather than being exact, rather than
Oh,
being
definitely.
like
Yeah, because everything was a puzzle at the time. I thought of everything as a puzzle, as everything came together. And, like, what I want to say is that some songs that I listened to, some of the music that I was into, it was very popular music. It was in the mainstream. Those songs, I felt like they were describing me and what I was doing. To name a few examples, Soundgarden. You see, at one time I was a banshee. And this wasn't a delusion. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was spreading out, I was pushing out music. I would put on my stereo and I would focus the music in my head and then I would push it out all around me and to miles and miles away. And what I think of that is
Did the neighbors ever complain?
No, it's a very spiritual thing. It's a very spiritual thing. It was spiritual. I thought people could hear me. Like I was sending a message, and I was just sending some songs, songs I believed in. And everything had two meanings to a word, to a song. Everything had two meanings, and the other meaning had to do with me. And the first meaning is probably the meaning that they were writing the song for a certain reason. And it might not have to do with me, but if I ever meet somebody and tell them about this, then it might make sense to them, you know.
Well, supposedly Aesop's fables, you know what they are.
What are they?
Aesop's fables, little stories with animals where something would happen and then there was a moral at the end. Greek.
Yeah.
Supposedly, in the original Greek, the way that those were written, they were written using words very carefully, where each word would have 8 different meanings, and that there would be the most obvious meaning when you read the story, and then you could reread it and like, analyze it, and it would actually be like maybe 10 or 20 different stories that would all be contained within the meaning of those words.
Yeah.
They'd all be interlinked, and you couldn't really understand the actual meaning of the story until you understood all of the different meanings of all the words.
When you die, things come together like that. Everything comes together. And I believe that when I went through Ouija board, I died in some sense, and things started to go on in my mind that were making sense, and that everything was all a puzzle. Everything was coming together as a puzzle, and I had to figure it out. I had to keep asking questions.
And this is not a society which encourages the asking of questions.
Another thing is that I think I'm what I see when I look at Peter Pan is that I connect it with me because my name is Peter. I was born in April. In April, the god of Mars is Pan. Pan is like a goat.
Right.
And I was born in April, and I connect that with Peter Pan. It comes together in a certain way. And that intrigued me for some reason. I was like, it was weird.
You were talking about getting in touch with different people, trying to find out exactly what things mean. You said on the phone earlier that you tried getting in touch with, was it Parker Brothers?
Yes.
About Ouija, and what exactly happened with that?
Well, they didn't think their own toy worked. They didn't think it worked themselves. They said it's just a toy, it's not supposed to work. They said that people complained to them that it didn't work, that it was a waste of money. And just imagine out of the 15,000 calls that they get where someone comes up and says, well, this damn thing, it doesn't work. We paid $15 for this thing and it doesn't work. What a waste of money. And here comes me calling on the phone being like, I have schizophrenia. I have a disease. This Ouija board did this to me. Now think of the possibilities. Think of all the possibilities, all the hype that's put behind Ouija boards, all the lies, all the stupid things that people say about Ouija boards, like that they don't work, that you're moving in, or shit like that. I'm an example. I'm probably the only example where this happened to me, and I want to prove to everybody in this whole world that I'm the only example of somebody who can get hurt by a Ouija board. I know there was a movie about it. I'm familiar with the movie. And that I didn't do it out of reason of the movie. I didn't do it because of that reason. I did it out of my own reason. I wanted to find out myself what would happen. Because I took the idea from the movie where you use it alone and everything, but I developed the technique where it induced in my body, basically.
Have you ever had any physical evidence of any of the alien experiments?
That's what I'm looking for now. I hope one day to get some kind of evidence that something happened to me. Right now, it's all up in the air. I'm just a delusioned, schizophrenic kid who, I have a disease. That's what people are gonna say. But if I get the answers, one day I'll prove everybody wrong.
There are a lot of things that are called diseases, especially in America right now, where like the whole thing with ADD, where there are a lot of schools where half the kids are on Ritalin.
Yeah.
And, it's a mental It's not just this one right here. and where the shrinks are all claiming that it's a mental disorder that has to be treated, but if it's half the population, I don't think you can call that a disease, and that's,
Yeah.
it's just, you have to recognize that different people operate on different levels, and it's all part of human existence. But,
Yeah.
and like trying to medicate certain parts of human existence to make them just stop, that ain't natural.
I don't agree with that. It's ostracizing. It's like they ostracize everybody. It's the system. Can't do anything about the system. Somebody will someday. I know somebody will. Somebody will come through, make fools out of everybody.
Well, to a degree, just by existing, and you're doing something about it. And like, everybody creates their own reality around them, and most people just accept like the dominant reality theme that's laid down, and they just go along with it and don't add to it or take anything away from it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a lot more flexible than that. All you have to do is just assert your own will, and instantly you're affecting reality too.
Yeah. I used to think I could affect all the reality around me. I used to think I could see one time. Another thing is that I used to have proof because I had telekinesis where my hands were magnetized to each other, and I could move objects with my hands. And I still practice this every night, where I keep my hands together and magnetic energy subsides in my hands in the palms. And I received this also from the Ouija board.
Would you like to do a demonstration?
I can't.
Have you ever been able to do this in front of other people?
And not in front of other people. I've only done it once in front of myself. In myself, I moved a guitar pick across the table with my finger. And I think that had influence from the beings, the UFO beings. I think they were helping me do it. They were there teaching me how to use it. And then they left, and then I lost the power.
But you're still trying to...
I'm trying as hard as I can to do it, but the power just isn't enough. What I think I got that from is I read a book called God of the Witches. And I have a lot of familiarism with witchcraft. But the God of the Witches was a book about fairies and witchcraft and a couple other things in the history of witches. And it showed a type of a festival that went on in the old ages where someone would pick somebody and they would call them the incarnate God. And they would do a test for 7 years to see if you would grow old. And what I believed happened was that I was put to a test by dead witches. And they gave me powers after they found out that I had been healthy and that I didn't grow old. But they did it for 3 days, and so they couldn't tell. But I think that was a delusion too.
Is there anything else that
Well, there's something in the future that's going to happen to everybody. I know about the future. I know about the end of the world. I call it the doppelganger weapon. Why I call that is because people will be split in halves. Their minds will lose. I think whatever happened to me will happen to everybody. Everybody around us will be everybody will be put to a test, a mental test, a test of the self. It'll be the war of the self. That's what I call it. World War III is the war of the self. It will make people will be flooded with their own. See, lies will subside in their mind, and they'll have to sort out all the lies, all the people around them, and it'll come down to themselves. Everybody will have to isolate themselves and find out the answer, and that will be the end. And we'll all at once be a collective, just like the dead. That's what I think will happen. So, what my advice now is just to be prepared. Just to prepare yourself for anything. But keep in mind everything in your mind. That's what I have to say.
That's pretty good.
That was my. That's what I've been studying nowadays. That's what I have to say to the world.
Have you studied any forms of shamanism?
Shamanism?
Or yeah, sorry.
No.
Because a lot of what you're talking about, it's the sort of thing that in another culture, rather than being referred to as schizophrenia, it would be just that you were out spirit walking or whatever.
I've tried to do that sometimes. What I said about the Golden Dawn.
You want to close the door?
Yeah, please close the door.
Either that or go suffocate.
Thank you. What I thought the Golden Dawn had to do with was spirit walking. I would want to find out who somebody was, where they was, what they were doing, where their home was, everything, by going there in an out-of-body experience. And I get that a lot. I get people coming in. This is what I sense. I sense living people coming into my room and looking around, and I've spoken to a few people, and I don't know if it's a delusion or if it's real. I don't know. But I'm still to debate with myself whether it's real or not.
How much control do you have over?
Well, I have complete control over my mind, but there are times when I can separate myself and I can use it like a test. I can separate myself into two, and my mind can make a subject out of something, make like a test subject, and that subject would have a voice. And people would walk in and use that voice and talk to me. And that's how I speak to the dead. And it's through a telepathic technique. I believe I have a telepathic bond with the dead.
When they communicate with you, is it in a language as we know language, or is it?
It's feelings. It's like a movie theater. They show you pictures. And telepathy, what telepathy really is someone would give you a feeling to go do something, and you would go do it. Or someone would tell you something, but they would show you in your mind. In a real quick thought. It's like thoughts. They're not really words or speaking or anything. It's thoughts. And that's how I communicate with the dead. They show me things and I show them things. It's like a movie theater. Like a VCR, you take a tape and stick it in the VCR and look it on the TV, and it's all a strung out process. But in your mind, it's so easy to look at things and to imagine things. It can be a part of the communication. And soon enough, the human being, mankind will know about this kind of communication and use it to its good. And I'll probably be the one to introduce it to them. That's what I think, because I know firsthand how to use it.
Well, through the years, there have been a lot of religions or like spiritual groups that did have beliefs that were fairly similar to what you're talking about. Have you ever?
Which ones?
Well, in bits and pieces of, depending on. Have you ever tried talking to anybody who was? Have you ever talked to anybody who had similar beliefs to your own, or similar experiences, or have you been?
No, I don't get much contact with well, it depends. I mean, who would you call?
I don't know. There was an ex-girlfriend of mine who, when she was a little girl, was having all kinds of visions of spirits and hearing voices, and she had kind of a telepathic bond with her father, apparently. And he, I don't think, was in the family anymore. He was off somewhere else. But occasionally, well, he was kind of an alcoholic at that point, and he'd go into bars and get into fights and get beaten up. And there were several times when she fully experienced and saw being drunk in a bar and getting beaten up. Well, and what eventually happened was she got in touch, or her mother, I think, got in touch with a witch who was, I can't remember her name, it's just like the head witch of a bunch of witches in Salem.
A coven.
Not exactly a coven, it's like an association.
Yeah.
And this witch trained her to
use it to her.
Well, selectively, to be able to shut it off when she wanted to.
Yeah.
Which was the main thing.
Well, it would be
so that the voices wouldn't intrude when she didn't want them to.
It would be very interesting if I could meet somebody like that. So I've already self-taught everything I know. I don't seem to have much contact with people who have these kind of things happen to them. Right now, I'm pretty much alone in this world that I'm in this psychotic world. It's very psychotic, but it's understandable. I have nothing to fear except myself. What I want to say is that I'm a normal person. I'm very normal. I go out to parties. People can call me crazy, but it doesn't bother me. I have a kitchen. I have a bedroom. I sleep at night. I do drugs sometimes. I can't say sometimes. The other day I did a lot, but I started doing drugs at 21.
That's kind of late.
It is late, and I grew up really fast when I did drugs.
Did you grow up fast?
Yes, and smoking does too.
Does it?
Yeah.
I don't know, it kind of kills me when I see, like...
I must be like 40.
I felt like I was 80 years old a couple of years ago. I thought I was going to die because I lived out my whole life. I thought I lived out my whole life because of the thoughts I was thinking. Because I figured out all the answers. What I demanded was, if I can get into the dead, if I can get to the dead, what they say is that all questions are answered. And that's what I demanded from the dead, is that I get all the answers. I want to know immediately. I want to know everything. Just about everything there was to know. Like things like the Bermuda Triangle and Loch Ness Monster and crop formations and UFO abduction.
What did they tell you about?
Oh, some things I got answers to and some things I didn't. Like, I got some answers to UFO abduction. I got some answers from the government.
From the government?
Yeah. Like what they're doing.
Like what?
Well, like, well, they can enter parallel worlds. They can live among us, but they can investigate. They can investigate homes, and they
Basically
can.
like the CIA?
No, like very deep military things. Very sophisticated military personnel. Like in the government, not like the CIA or FBI or something like that. They're not sophisticated enough. Only the government knows these things. And I thought I had spoken to them a couple of times. I thought they were in my room, pointing guns at me a few times. right there. I felt their presence. I can feel all kinds of presences around me. But I knew that they were military. They could be the military of the dead or the military of the living. But what I judged is that they were living. They were breathing people, but they had suits on. It was like what I figured out is that they stopped time. They stopped it. And they entered a world that was parallel, and they could enter our world as invisible people, very invisible. And I guess they brought guns. I'm not sure why, but just to protect themselves or something. I probably shouldn't be saying this. If Fort Evans gets a hold of this, they'll probably come after me.
You think there would be people that high up in Fort Devens?
Maybe. I can tell you a few things. One time when I lived in my home in Groton, I woke up and I was speaking to the beings. I've done it a couple of times. I spoke to the UFO beings, and they had swarms of helicopters circling the city. I didn't know what they were doing. They did it for weeks. This was the fall of 1993. That's all they did. From the summer to the spring, I just saw helicopters everywhere, searching. It was like they were circling, and one even circled my house. And this was when I was speaking to beings. So that was some sort of proof that I had.
You figured there had to be a connection?
There had to be a connection to that. They circled my house, and I don't know why. It was like they pinpointed my house. And if I can get a hold of a record, of that time, I can't remember the specific date, but if I can get a hold of a record where it shows that they actually circled this one particular house, then that's proof that, that something happened. Because I'm not really an example of, I might be a psychic, I might be an empath, I might be something, but if I disappear, then you know probably who did it. It was probably the government. I'm not afraid. I hope someday they probably do come and I can work for them. I hope one day that I can.
Do you know what their motivations are?
They have a technology that they're exploring. They're trying to explore every end to the possibility, every possibility they can come up with. And it even comes down to the dead. Comes down to UFO abduction, comes down to UFO technology. Has to do with parallel worlds in time itself, studying time itself, and plus the mind. They have psychic mediums that work for the military that do extensive work.
Right, and I'm aware of that. Since the 50s, there was the whole sort of competition between the Pentagon and Russia.
Certainly, even Russia has a lot to do with that. But I don't think they have half as much as what America's doing. America's probably the leading authority in what's going on. I hope someday to go to Nevada and photograph, a couple of bases and see what goes on. I'll probably do that next year. That's my plan. I'll go to Nevada, go to one of these UFO investigative groups, and photograph the experimental flight of unidentified flying objects or on military bases and things like that.
One theory that I've read about schizophrenia is that people with schizophrenia are actually the most highly evolved humans. Because the main thing that separates human beings from animals is that human beings draw connections between things, and they have human beings have language, which enables them to cross-reference things and draw connections between things, whereas animals are just sort of living by the second, and they might have some kind of association where like such and such thing will make me not be hungry anymore. You know, and if I eat such and such, I'll get sick, but it's a pretty low level.
Yeah,
degree
it's
of
all
connection.
down to the beast and everything.
Right, and with regular humans, we have language, and we can try to figure out the Earth travels around the sun, and just by taking measurements of the movements of things in the sky, draw all kinds of connections of things.
We're now figuring out the mind. We already know much about the body. We know everything about the body, but we don't know much about the mind. We have drugs in this world, but we can't explain what's behind the drugs.
Right.
People
they discover
don't,
what the drugs do, and then they
don't
try
have
to
it.
explain it afterwards. But then
it's not really doing.
they don't. I know they don't
It's not
really
doing
know
the
what
work.
they do.
And I can do certain things like that. You gonna put this on TV?
Possibly. I mean,
You're gonna edit it, right?
yeah, definitely.
Okay. But see, I think our bodies are the first thing to explore. We're trapped in our bodies, and then we go to our minds, and our minds are something else. Eventually, we'll figure out the secret to our minds, and then comes spirit, because spirit is right around the corner. Forgive my neighbors. Please forgive my neighbors.
They're Puerto Rican. They don't know what they do.
I learned a few Spanish words the other day.
Yeah.
Melichi pato.
What does that mean?
Fucking faggot.
Anything else?
Just the basic. The basic needs for life when you gotta talk to them. Like, I need to borrow your vacuum and what's the name? I'll vacuum and you know, I need to use your TV or I need to use your phone and things like that. I need to get some milk and things like that.
Telefono? El Milko?
I know they understand. See, I'm a normal person. I'm very normal. I keep most of these things to myself. I don't tell a lot of people about these things because I know they won't understand. I know you would understand, of course, but...
Right, and a lot of it I don't have experience of myself, and I don't necessarily have a literal belief in it, but it makes sense within
Within a range.
Right.
Yeah.
Fiesta.
You said you were in therapy. What's that been like?
Good. Very good. Because I go to Friendlies for therapy.
Friendlies?
Yeah.
The restaurant?
Yeah.
What you go over there, right?
Yeah.
What therapist do you have?
Marion Hagopian.
You know David Haddad, right?
No.
Oh no. Well, remember that building that we're in the same spot?
Yeah.
Same time that day?
Yeah.
Well, his office is just like straight, that one.
Yeah.
Like the one straight through.
You see, therapy didn't used to be very good. It was very uptight. I had to try to explain myself a few times. Things I couldn't even talk about because I didn't think you would understand. Until I found a therapist who would understand, and it's a process. It's the whole system. You know, I was very upset with the system at the time because I was hospitalized a few times for suicide, and suicide wasn't a good, it wasn't a good reason to put me in the hospital for a whole month and not let me out of there. You can't isolate somebody for
Dude, that would make anybody crazy.
yeah, it made me crazy. I was going crazy. And there were songs about it, about going crazy. The songs I listened to. There are so many names. There's Alice in Chains, there's Nirvana, Soundgarden, a lot of grunge, a lot of industrial, a lot of alternative. And they all know. they all know what's going on. It was like they knew what was going on with me, and they penned down the song about me and everything. And I couldn't tell anybody, because they'd be like, "Oh, that's stupid." They wrote the song because they wrote the song and everything. In Man in the Box, for an example, Man in the Box by Alice in Chains, I looked at the song and I said it had to do with my eyes, because he says so your eyes shut, and my eyes were always blinking and everything, and I didn't want to hear my words again. I didn't want to hear anything again. And he's like, sew your eyes shut. Can you sew them shut? And I was in a prison. In myself. I was very much in a prison. It had a lot to do with Christ. A lot of the things I had to do with Christ. That I thought one day I could resurrect Christ.
Were you raised as a Christian?
Yes, I'm Catholic. So I'm a very normal person before this all happened. And my family, everybody, mostly my family, they think that this happened because it just happened. It was my age. It was supposed to happen. And I strongly disagree. It was a Ouija board. It was that. And I hope one day to sue Parker Brothers for it. If I can prove that something can work out of it, that it works. But no one can really prove that a Ouija board works.
Can you still do the thing where you read it?
Yes, I read Ouija boards. I look at a Ouija board and I read it.
Like without the thing moving?
Yeah, without the indicator. I take it and I read it like a typewriter. I memorize the letters and my eyes go to the letters. Keep that in your tape because that's important.
Yeah.
I don't mean to bother you for another cigarette, but I'm dying. I promise I'll get you a 40.
Well, never mind about that.
Really?
They make you go out in the cold. It's not a big deal.
Shouldn't smoke as much. Your lungs are far away.
I'm a chimney dude.
Yeah.
I'm a wicked chimney. I'm gonna die tomorrow. I don't have anything.
That's good for Christmas. So you don't put that.
See, I'm a very normal person. I have a lot of friends. I am looking for somebody. I don't know if you know her.
Oh, that chick?
Yeah.
I still got the tape, man, but I can't go to my mom's house to get it.
Uh,
No, we get skinny. Otherwise, I'd get it for you.
she had a little bit to do with what went on. Her name's Kara Silverberg.
What?
Kara Silverberg.
Carousel de Brink?
Silverberg.
Explain her.
Yeah.
I think I've seen
She,
her.
I went to college with her. And I had a crush on her. And she graduated and disappeared. And everybody I ask around here, everywhere, no one seems to know her. And so hopefully if you're listening, call me, please. Give me a call.
The phone.
Well, I'll have a phone pretty soon. Come to my house. But it's a girl I had a crush on. And I feel like I have a telepathic bond with her. Like I know what she's thinking and everything.
Have you ever tried asking the Ouija board where she is?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it won't tell you?
It would tell me, but it would lead me to different places. Places that were unfamiliar to me. Like it would say that, like demons like to lie. And I've met a lot of demons. And they've lied to me. They've lied to me quite a few times, pretending to be somebody else. You can't really see them, but you can only see the letters in the Ouija board. And the only way to do it, I know enough now to recognize somebody when they're talking. But it used to be just like when a million people could go by and talk on the Ouija board, and I couldn't tell who was
You
there.
couldn't distinguish.
Yeah, exactly. But now, I can distinguish in my mind when they're talking to me in my mind. But on the Ouija board, it's much more difficult. But when they told me specific evidence of what happened in college, I knew it was her. I knew she had she was there. Like she knows how to do this out of body thing. I have this feeling she's in my presence all the time. Of course, she could be watching this and could be very pissed off and be like, no, none of this is real, none of that happened. So I'm
You
just...
hadn't ever talked to her about any of this?
I haven't spoken to her in 2.5 years. I never really spoke to her. I've only talked to her a few times, small talk. But the way she looked at me, she knew what I was thinking. I knew it. And she looked like a very spiritual person. And soon enough, I became obsessed with her. You know? Looking around for it and everything. Going out of my way. Walking places, looking for her. Because the demons told me that she would be there.
They just fuck with you?
Yeah, I would be. It was like I was possessed, you know?
Didn't you say at one point that you thought she was in Ashburnham or something?
Yeah. Fitchburg.
I think we've
And
seen it one night naturally.
Yeah.
We were all too to talk.
You were what?
We were all too to talk to her.
What does she look like?
Oh, she has black hair. She's short.
Is
She's
she
skinny.
like gothic at all?
Yeah, kind of gothic.
She wears a cape.
Yeah.
Probably was.
Did you think? Hey,
Probably.
Megan, did you talk to Jay Gallagher at all? Okay.
You just see his brother.
Because he told me that you were the person that I met one night who gave me a fake name.
What?
I said, I know Megan, she wouldn't do that.
Don't listen to Jamie.
I know, he's a liar.
Storyteller.
He's a liar, dude. He was lying. It was, I went to Ashburnham one night for a cult meeting. Can you turn the camera off?
Sure.
Are you recording me?
I am.
You are. Alright. Should I do anything funny? I could just move it around. What are you doing to me? Focus. Focus.
Moon it.
Ask me a question.
So, Chad, what is your function in life?
I'm a bum.
As a bum, do you have any aspirations?
Nah. To not be a bum anymore.
What would you like to be?
An ass.
Truck driver? Maybe.
What is the meaning of life?
Oh.
In your eyes.
In my opinion, life is like this big circle, right? Same circle. Same things keep happening over and over.
That's true.
Only different ways.
Yeah. That's good.
Different order of events, but the same events. That's what I think. I figured it all out. And, you know,
The end of the conversations.
yeah. The end of acid conversations, you know. The deep ones you get into with people.
On
I
my
love
front
those.
porch.
Yeah.
In our green chairs. You should see us. It's wicked funny. We have like these 2 little green chairs. We go out, sit in the green chairs, smoke a cigarette. Talk about stupid stuff.
Watch the little kids. That's wicked fun.
Oh man, my
The little brother, he gets up, he's like spins around, he's like, ah.
He's like the Tasmanian devil. Oh, I pushed my sister off the couch today. She was pissing me off wicked bad. She was jumping up and down on the couch. I just took her head and she went. I laughed wicked bad. My mom was like yelling at me. I hate those things.
Look at her hair.
No, I'm bald. I look like a little boy.
So do you know Heather Jackson?
Yeah? I talked to her about you the other day.
Really?
Mhm.
Heather
I called her
Jackson.
the other night.
Heather Jackson's like the kind of chubby girl with the short red curly hair that's really nice.
Oh, I know her. She goes to high school.
Yeah. She likes me.